The golem's attack did not stop there. It then tore apart the building where they were standing using its big hands. It made the building shake violently, which made them run staggeringly, but they continued to force their legs to run from course, but it seemed useless. Relying on its large size, the golem could easily reach out to attack them. They then fell to the floor without knowing whether they were alive or dead. Chayun herself was still trying to get up, but the golem's head suddenly appeared in front of her eyes. She was very desperate to see that. She now also realized that the golem could not be a puppet, and felt her death was approaching. She was very unwilling. Why here, of all places? And in the midst of her despair, a bullet then shot towards the golem. A very dazzling light then appeared after the bullet hit the golem. The small bullet actually managed to make the golem's hard skin crack, and stopped the movement of the golem that was about to attack Chayun. Chayun was then surprised when she saw that, and when she looked for the source where the bullet was fired, she then saw Hajin, who was standing in the opposite place from her. A few minutes earlier, when Hajin's party continued their journey, they were then faced with a dead end. Jaden then irritably said to him, he said he could see the boss field past this point, but this was blocked. Hearing that, Hajin said that this was the right place. He was also confused at this time. This wall was not there, but he felt that it wasn't important now. He then told him that the boss field should be behind this wall, so he asked him to try to destroy it. Jaden was very upset to see Hajin telling him to, but he did it anyway, and he then attacked the stone wall using all his strength, but his attack couldn't even scratch the wall and instead made his hands tremble. Jaden then complained in pain and said, "Of course this can't be destroyed." Hajin was quite surprised to see that it couldn't be destroyed, even with an attack filled with magic power. But Hazuki suddenly pointed in a direction and told them to look. There was a narrow gap above the stone wall. Hajin then said that they could enter through there. Hearing that, Jaden then scolded him. He felt it was really nonsense. This wall was at least 10 meters high. How could they climb it? Hearing that, Hajin just asked, could he not? Hajin also said, then, I'll go first. He then used his newly acquired mastery, parkour, to be able to skillfully climb the stone wall. It really made him able to easily reach the very top of the stone wall. Without waiting for them, he then immediately entered the narrow gap that was there. They were really dumbfounded to see it. They wondered, he was a cat or what, but they were then surprised when the place they stood suddenly shook violently. It made the stalactites hanging above them fall. Facing this sudden change, Jaden could only curse. He also wondered, what really happened? After firing his shot, Hajin was then surprised when he saw the golem could move again. He was confused how it could get out of the stun so quickly. He then told Chayun to stop daydreaming and immediately move. Hearing that, Chayun finally woke up from her shock. Seeing the golem that was now approaching him, Hajin then horrified continued his words, "And save me," but fortunately, Chayun's party came at the right time and immediately formed a fighting formation to attack the giant golem. But even though they had attacked the golem repeatedly, but it didn't even move a bit, Chayun was happy to see the arrival of all of them. She then regained her spirit and immediately prepared her attack, with a position aiming at the golem. Chayun then asked them to buy a minute for her. Hearing that, they then as much as possible pulled aggro from the golem. Chayun once again asked them to wait a little longer, but suddenly, the golem sensed someone who quickly rushed towards it. But the person could quickly attack the golem before it could even react. The person's attack really succeeded in crushing the mouth of the golem. He then apologized to them for being a little late. That person turned out to be Sven, who now looked back in shape. Seeing him who was above it head, the golem then immediately launched an attack towards him. But its attack could be easily avoided by him. It also gave Chayun enough time to prepare her attack. She then recalled the time when she fought the jinn. That time she was completely helpless without being able to provide resistance, but unlike before, now it would be a little different, and Chayun then released her shot. The attack was so powerful that it destroyed the golem's head. After the fall of the golem, seeing that, Chayun's party members were really surprised to see that they really managed to defeat the magma golem. They also wondered, did they get points from that? In the midst of their surprise, they then heard Chayun's voice calling them and asking if they were okay. They then immediately asked her how they killed the creature. Chayun chuckled at their astonishment. She then answered, of course with the ultimate. Seeing their interaction, Hajin thought, Sven didn't become a djinn completely. The plot changed from the original story, but he knew it was just a momentary pause. Because he had already made a contract with the demon, because he didn't know when Sven would go on a rampage, things would get more dangerous from now on. Chai Nayan then finally remembered Hajin's whereabouts. She then saw Hajin, who was resting nearby. Seeing that, Chai Nayan paused for a moment while making a doubtful face. She then suddenly called Hajin and approached him. Hajin was then surprised to see that. Chai Nayan said, she thought, she should at least say this, with an embarrassed face. She then thanked him. Hajin was really surprised to hear that. He then confusedly asked, what? Hearing him who even asked her back, Chai Nayan then embarrassedly said that she said what she wanted to say. Hajin was really surprised to hear Chai Nayan thank him. Nayan's life was colored with tragedy, her first tragedy. On her 6th birthday, she lost her mother to the jinn and decided to become a hero. To achieve that, she worked very hard. At an age when normal children spend their time laughing and playing, Nayan personally pushed herself through bone-breaking hero training, and she couldn't make deep connections with her friends. Because telling someone your deepest feelings is like telling them your weakness, there are not a lot of people that heard her say thanks. With very few people who can say they're true friends of Nayan, because the word sorry is written more than thanks, by her, the author. Hajin was silent for a moment while thinking about it. Chai Nayan then asked him, why he was bullied by Jonghak and his gang if he was this strong. She saw he could even stop the magma golem. If he is this strong, he should be able to defeat the people who are bullying him with one attack. Hearing that, Hajin said that he didn't do anything because he couldn't beat them in battle. Chai Nayan was then confused to hear that. She really didn't understand what he was talking about. She had just seen how strong his gun attack was. Hearing that, Hajin then finally realized the point of her question, and he then showed his desert eagle and said that this was his personal weapon. He asked if that was enough to explain. Chai Nayan was really surprised to see his weapon. She even went as far as calling him a crazy bastard. He would be suspended if he was caught with it. Hajin just said, therefore, he only wore it in important times. He also continued in his heart, and he learned how to hide the weapon in the stigma. So he wouldn't be suspended for being caught having a personal weapon. Even so, Chai Nayan felt that he was still so strong even without it. She suddenly got some kind of conjecture. She then asked what his talent was, the strengthening of firearms. Hajin really couldn't understand her conjecture. He then told her to think whatever she wanted, but that made Chai Nayan think he was confirming her conjecture. She also said she would ignore the matter of him having a personal weapon, so she told him not to use it again later. But she suddenly stopped her steps and said, there is one more thing. She asked, isn't there something he wants to tell her? Hajin was silent for a moment. Hearing that, he knew what she meant, but he decided to answer no. Hearing that, Chai Nayan said, so that's it, and she then walked away from there feeling depressed. Hajin knew that if he apologized now, Nayan would definitely forgive him about mentioning her brother, but he couldn't do that. It was best if his relationship with Nayan was just an awkward acquaintance, because he would kill Chai Jin-yoon. When Chai Nayan returned to her party, her partner then jokingly said that she didn't know she was close to him, but Chai Nayan immediately denied that she was close to Hajin. Sven was just silent. Hearing that, I don't know what thoughts were in his head at this time, but suddenly, an announcement voice then appeared, telling all cadets to postpone the raid and get out of the dungeon quickly. The announcement then repeated itself once more. In this practical dungeon raid, there were quite a few problems, from the dungeon security cameras suddenly malfunctioning after the start of the test, to real monsters appearing instead of puppets, even to poor staffing so that these problems were detected late after the incident. Although this was a serious problem, because no one died, Cube told the cadets that they would investigate these problems internally, instead of leaving it to an external group, or in other words, the Jin who held executive positions in the management of Cube wanted to eliminate these incidents quietly. The investigation of this incident mostly happened after episode 2, so for now, he decided to worry about Sven first. The side effect of making a contract with a demon was to strengthen emotions and obsession. It would be the worst scenario if Sven's emotions got out of control and went berserk when he was only with Nayan. In order to avoid that kind of situation, he had to monitor Sven and Nayan's behavior. He then opened the messenger using his notebook. This weighed on his conscience, so he would immediately turn it off once he read the message. And he then accessed Chai Nayan's messenger without permission. There were messages from several people that she had not read. One of them was from Sven. Sven said that he heard that the hunting club was going to Gangwon province this Sunday. He invited her to bet. Reading that, Hajin thought, this Sunday at the hunting club, That day, in the original story, Sven would go on a rampage. Hajin then thought about following him. But he had to make various preparations just in case, because he had grown a little. He thought it was time for him to go to the Gari Mountain dungeon. But his smartwatch suddenly beeped. It was an indication of someone calling him, and when he opened his smartwatch, he was then surprised and confused when he saw who was calling him, and when Hajin answered the phone, the person smiled slightly. The person turned out to be Kim Suho. He then asked him if he was free on Friday. Hajin was then confused to hear that. Kim Suho said that he wanted to ask for a favor. Gari Mountain is a famous place in Gangwon province which rages with pure and spiritual energy. Because of this, Mt. Gari was called the Mecca of training by martial artists nationwide. However, the people who come to Gari Mountain aren't only restricted to martial artists. Instead of fighting monsters, there are some people who roam across the country to search for valuable items buried somewhere in these mountains. Like him, ginseng digger Kim Yeon-jun, Hajin could only be silent hearing his explanation. He then just answered okay. Kim Yeon-jun said that he saw him looking at the map, but he would never, ever find the tip of the ginseng if it was like that. He had to be able to read the mountain flow. Like him, hearing his misunderstanding, Hajin then said that he was not a ginseng digger. There was a place he was looking for, but Kim Yeon-jun did not believe his words at all, because that was what all the young people who tried to enter this field told him. He then told him to remember this well. Plunging into this business just because you want to get rich quickly is. Hajin could only be silent when he heard that. After advising him, Kim Yeon-jun then wished him good luck. Hearing that, Hajin thanked him, and he then continued on his way. Seeing that, Kim Yeon-jun chuckled and thought, he is very amateurish. He still has a long way to go, not even a few steps from there. But Hajin tripped over a tree root, but when he looked at the tree root that tripped him, he was surprised to find a ginseng root nearby. When Hajin resumed his journey, he was seen chewing something. Now, he was eating a 7-year-old ginseng root. By using the setting modification, he increased his variable stats by 2 for 30 minutes. He was now seen climbing a certain cliff. He also thought, if he sold all the ginseng he got, he could get at least $700,000. He felt it's a bit of a waste. But his foot suddenly slipped, which made him almost fall. Fortunately he had a strong grip. The cliff was very high, which made him not just find the place he was looking for. In the middle of the cliff of Mount Gari, after passing through a lot of moss and vines, there was a hidden undead dungeon. After a while, Hajin then finally found some kind of cave. The dungeon boss with a high intermediate rank level 1 monster, Death Knight. He had indeed increased his stats with the ginseng, but he still couldn't even win from it if he only relied on that, but that didn't matter. And when Hajin entered the cave, a hand suddenly stuck out from the ground in front of him. The hand turned out to be from the undead that were now blocking the path in front of him, but Hajin seemed to have expected it. While activating the stigma, he then thought, his goal today was not the boss, but the hidden place of this dungeon. Looking at the undead that were charging towards him, Hajin was very calm. He then took out the Desert Eagle from inside the stigma, aiming right at the undead's mouth. He then opened fire. The shot completely destroyed the undead's body with just one shot. Hajin's shots certainly did not stop there. He then bombarded the undead using his gun shots. Hajin then activated Thousand Eyes Miles to check the route. When he activated the skill, he then saw countless undead blocking the road in front of him, but that didn't matter to him. He then jumped and perched on the ceiling of the cave sky, with an aiming position. He then returned to his massacre. After a while, after God knows how many times he fired his gun until it made the tip of the gun steam out, he finally succeeded in subverting the undead that were there. The number of undead increased. Hajin felt that he must be getting closer to Evangel's lair. The witch, Evangel, she was the boss of the hidden place in the Gari Mountain dungeon, and in the future, she would make the worst undead army in history in the abandoned school of Suwon City, Evangel Castle. I guess that's the background story he made up. It would be difficult to defeat her if she used her adult form, but the real reason he was looking for her today, because there are 2 items that can be obtained from Evangel, upgrade type equipment, Ether, and Evangel Seed. It is the weapon that made the character demonic human. Tomer, an executive of Wicked, there is no other item better than Ether to help him evolve quickly at this time. As Hajin continued to move forward, he was then faced with a small cave in front of him. Seeing that, she then reactivated the 1,000 Miles Eyes. It allowed him to see deep into the cave. At the very bottom of the cave, there was a little girl sitting under the crystal tree. The adult form of the witch was difficult to deal with, so he had to kill her while she was still in the form of a child, because her body and intelligence were not fully developed. While Evangel was playing with the object in her hand, she then noticed someone walking closer. Hajin paused for a moment to see that. He didn't look like he could bear it, but he then clasped his hands tightly to strengthen his determination. This was something he had to do, and this was what Tomer did. And Hajin then walked over to her. He also thought, after all, he was the one who created her. He couldn't kill the witch with his gun in one blow while she was in spiritual form. In that case, he then reactivated his stigma, and changed the light attribute mana into a spear. He now finally also realized the efficacy of the ginseng root she had just consumed earlier. It was really powerful. He felt like he was Yuyona now, and he then threw the spear strongly towards the witch. After that, a very dazzling light then appeared when the spear hit the witch. But Hajin was surprised to see that the witch was still alive after his attack. A pitch-black aura seemed to be enveloping the witch at this time. Hajin immediately became alert when he saw that, but a crack suddenly appeared on the witch's face, and she then disappeared just like that. Seeing that, Hajin thought it must be the last explosion before she died. Where the witch disappeared, there was an item shaped like a seed. It was Evangel's seed. A seed containing the soul of the witch Evangel. When this seed grows, the witch of despair Evangel will be born. Ether. Equipment in the form of liquid, has no definite shape. It is attached to the master and the master's weapon, and strengthens the core. Seeing that, Hajin immediately took it. After Hajin returned to the dormitory, he then further examined the items he had just obtained. As a side effect of the equipment ether bonded to him, all the stat variables increased by 0.6. He couldn't change the possession. Looking at his variable stats that had now increased significantly, Hajin exclaimed in amazement. He felt that the bonding effect was very good, and it was getting better as it progressed. He also breathed a sigh of relief that he was finally at the cube cadet level now. He also gained 47 SP, and since he put the rest of the ginseng into the violet banquet, he was sure that it would definitely be sold soon. But the biggest advantage is this, Evangel's seed, a seed that contains Evangel's witch soul. When this seed grows, the Witch of Despair Evangel will be born. The name Witch of Despair might make her sound like a villain, but if he takes good care of her, she will be a reliable ally. Raising the Evangel's seed is simple. You only need to feed it with a little blood instead of water, but the growth and nature of the witch is different depending on whose blood you give it, so he had to think hard about this. But when thinking about the candidates he expected, he felt that it might be difficult, so he decided to put that aside for now. He was very confused about how he could get their blood. He had to sleep early today. Tomorrow would be an extremely tiring day. Gangwon Province, Bioakpa Mountain Hot Springs. Seeing them all gathered, she then greeted them. She said that she was glad to see everyone in order. She was sure this must be the first time they had seen each other since the orientation period. There was also Hajin. There was a gathering place for the hunting club members before doing today's mission. The club leader then said she would explain their club mission once again for those who missed the orientation period. Their hunting club, Leonidas, has a regular schedule of hunting meetings. By hunting dangerous things, they can get more profit by channeling their hobbies and helping the community. While listening to the explanation from the club leader, Hajin swallowed and thought. He didn't know the details of today's episode, because he rarely saw what happened in his writing, due to the Jin's rampage. Nayan was seriously injured when Sven sacrificed his life for the root of the problem. This event was just a situation for Kim Suho to pay more attention to Nayan. By making others think that the Jin's goal was Nayan, when all the search team's eyes are on Nayan, the perpetrator will be able to easily catch the real target. The thing he's worried about is Sven's plot changing from the original story. He still doesn't go berserk, and although it's faint, he uses the power of the demon. He doesn't have to worry about him if he can just get him out of here now. But it would be a shame if he made a scene now. When Hajin glanced at Sven, Chai Nayan who was with him then noticed it, but she mistakenly thought that Hajin kept glancing at her. She was also confused why he kept following her even though he pretended not to be interested. She then got some kind of conjecture. Seeing that, Sven then told her to be careful, but Nayan smiled dismissively at hearing him tell her to be careful of Hajin. Sven said, in the case of the missing person behind this. Nayan was then surprised to hear that. She then said that he was not someone who would do something like that. Sven was silent for a moment hearing Nayan defend Hajin. He then invited him to go. Nayan agreed. Seeing the two of them walking away, Hajin was silent for a moment. A few moments later, somewhere, a deer was seen eating the grass there, but a tentacle suddenly appeared silently near the deer's place. The tentacle then suddenly attacked the deer by stabbing its body. Not stopping there, the tentacle then wrapped itself around the deer's body. The tentacle turned out to be from Sven. Looking at the deer that was now in his grasp, Sven just looked at it with an apathetic look. But he was then surprised when he heard Nayan's voice calling him and asking about his whereabouts. He then immediately removed the tentacles. After a while, Nayan then appeared while carrying her hunt on her shoulders. She also felt she had won the bet with her hunt, but he was then shocked when she saw Sven's prey piling up behind him. He surprisedly asked how he could catch that much. Sven did not answer and said, "It seems like he won the bet." Hearing that, Nayan could only sigh disappointed, but she did not deny it. She asked, so she had to grant his wish, right? She then asked what it was. While blushing, Sven was then about to convey what was in his heart at the moment. The interaction between the two of them was seen by Hajin, who was now hiding in a nearby bush. Sven made a contract with the demon of lust, Asmodeus, because his desire was strengthened due to being a jinn. Boundaries were no longer in his dictionary. Sven asked, would she go out with him? Nayan was then surprised to hear that. Seeing her not answering, Sven then asked her once again, but Nayan replied, of course not. She asked him back, would he say yes to someone who declared her love for him when he had only known her for less than a week? A very deep disappointment filled Sven's heart when he heard that, but he didn't say anything else. Seeing that, Hajin then silently told him to show his true identity now, show his true nature as a jinn. But Nayan at this time suddenly said that he liked people who were stronger than her, but what she didn't know was, it triggered Sven. While turning around, Nayan then apologized to him. Sven then said that he understood. He asked, so she would like him if he was stronger than her, right? Hearing that, Nayan then irritably said that that was enough, but Nayan was then surprised when Sven suddenly attacked her using his tentacles. The attack was so strong that it made dust fly when it hit the ground. But after the dust disappeared, Sven was then surprised by what he saw. His attack was successfully blocked by Hajin using the ether that he turned into a shield. Hajin then asked if she was okay, but before he could even finish his sentence, Sven then quickly attacked him using his tentacles. Nayan then worriedly called out to him when she saw it, feeling anxious. She then took her bow. Sven then wrapped around Hajin's body using his tentacles. It made it difficult for Hajin to breathe. Seeing that, Nayan then cast mana condensation and told him to release him, but her attack had very little effect on the tentacles. She was then surprised when she heard Sven repeatedly say that he loved her. His form now seemed no longer human. Nayan was very upset. She then re-prepared her attack, as Hajin desperately broke free from Sven's grasp. He was then surprised when he saw the attack that Nayan was about to throw. Sometimes, the characters in this world who have high potential, will end up wasting their time, not for the sake of reaching their true potential, but because they took the wrong weapon for themselves, and undoubtedly, she was at the top of that order. Hajin laughed happily when he saw that Nayan really managed to transform her magic power into the form of a huge sword now. With a feeling of anger, she then told Sven to let him go now, and she then released her attack. The attack was so powerful that it lit up that lush forest.